My parents sold my 11-year-old daughter's antique cello, the one she got from my grandmother, for $87,000, and spent the money on a pool for my sister's kids. When Grandma found out, she didn't cry. She smiled and said, "The cello was." My parents' faces went pale. I knew something was wrong before we even reached the music room. At the time, I didn't fully understand what that smile meant. I just knew it wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't shock either. It was the kind of calm that only comes from someone who already knows the truth and has decided not to raise their voice. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with who I am, because context matters in families like mine. My name is Emily, and I've spent most of my life being the useful one. Not the favorite. Not the celebrated. Just useful. The one who shows up, keeps the peace, and doesn't make things difficult. I learned early that being easy was safer than being seen. My daughter Lucy is 11. She's quiet, observant, and deeply musical in a way that feels almost borrowed from another lifetime. She doesn't play to impress people. She plays because music makes sense to her when people don't. That cello, the one my parents sold, wasn't just an instrument. It was an antique. Carefully maintained. Appraised. Documented. My grandmother's pride and joy. And before anyone twists this into sentimentality, yes, it was valuable. Objectively. Financially. $87,000 valuable. But more than that, it was Lucy's. My grandmother gave it to her deliberately. Not casually. Not as a cute gesture. She gave it to Lucy because she saw something in her: talent, discipline, and a hunger to belong, and because she saw something else too. She saw how my parents treated Lucy compared to my sister's kids. My sister Rachel has 2 children. Loud, adored, endlessly accommodated. Everything they do is celebrated. Every mess is kids being kids. Every demand is met with laughter and indulgence. Lucy, on the other hand, learned early how to take up less space. My grandmother noticed. And instead of making speeches about it, she did something quieter. Smarter. She created a space where Lucy didn't have to apologize for existing. That space was the music room in my parents' house. Climate-controlled. Locked. Protected. Safe. That's where the cello lived. Or at least, that's where it was supposed to live. On the day all of this came apart, Lucy was excited. Not loud excited. Focused excited. The kind where a child hums to themselves and taps rhythms on their knees because they're already halfway inside the thing they love. She thought we were just going to practice. She had no idea she was walking toward the moment she would learn exactly where she stood in my family. And neither did I. Because if I had known what we were about to find, if I had known what my parents had already done, I would have turned the car around. But instead, I unlocked the front door. And that's when I realized something was very, very I knew something was wrong before we even reached the music room. I knew something was wrong before we even reached the music room. You can smell a renovation the way you can smell a lie. Fresh paint. Sawdust. That sharp chemical tang that says someone spent money they didn't explain first. Lucy climbed out of the car with her backpack slung over one shoulder, and her music binder tucked carefully under her arm. Her rosin tin was light because the most important part, the cello itself, already lived here. Or at least that's what we both believed. The house looked the same from the outside. Same pale siding. Same front steps. Same neat hedges my mother trimmed like she was editing a photograph. But the air felt different. Busy. Disturbed. Like something had been rearranged without asking permission. Lucy closed the car door and immediately started humming under her breath. Not a song, just notes. Testing them. Feeling them out. She does that when she's excited, when she's already half inside the music. "Do you think Great-Grandma will be there today?" she asked, tightening her ponytail like she could control the universe with an elastic band. "She's at her place," I said. "Not today. We'll call her later." Lucy nodded, but her eyes stayed hopeful anyway. Like maybe my grandmother had changed her mind overnight. Like maybe she'd woken up missing the smell of my dad's aftershave and my mom's passive-aggressive cooking, and decided to come home. Hope does that to kids. It fills in gaps adults already know better than to touch. I unlocked the front door. Not because I'm especially trusted, but because I'm useful. There's a difference. One gets you affection. The other gets you access codes and errands. The second the door opened, the smell hit harder. paint, wood, money. Somewhere in the house, power tools whined and stopped, then started again. Not loud enough to announce themselves. Just loud enough to tell the truth. Lucy's face lit up. Are they fixing the music room? I didn't answer right away. My brain was still buffering, that slow, stupid lag it does when reality doesn't match the script you've been carrying around in your head. We stepped inside. A tarp covered the hallway runner like the house was prepping for surgery. Cardboard boxes lined the walls. Blue painter's tape marked doorways and corners. A polite way of saying don't touch anything you didn't pay for. Lucy tiptoed like she was in a museum. Mom! I called out, loud enough to reach whichever room my mother currently ruled from. No answer. Lucy wandered toward the back windows. Whoa! I followed her gaze and felt my stomach drop. The backyard looked excavated. Peeled open. A huge rectangle carved out where grass used to be. Piles of dirt stacked like small mountains. Rebar. Wooden forms. Neatly arranged pavers waiting their turn. It wasn't finished, but it didn't need to be. It was a pool. A full in-ground pool. Because why quietly improve your life when you can announce it to the neighborhood with heavy machinery? Lucy blinked. Is that for us? There was so much hope in her voice that I actually hated everyone I was related to in that moment. I don't know, I said carefully. Let's get your cello. We walked down the hallway toward the music room, my grandmother's territory. Even when she lived here, that room had been hers. Temperature controlled. Humidifier humming softly. Shelves lined with old sheet music. A cabinet with a lock, because my grandmother wasn't born yesterday. Lucy loved that room. She said it smelled like polish and peppermint tea. I said it smelled like boundaries. I reached the door and paused just for a second. The power tools went quiet. The house felt like it was holding its breath. I pushed the door open. The humidifier was still running. The stand was still there. The chair was still tucked neatly in place. But the corner, the exact corner where Lucy's cello always rested, where it belonged, was empty. Not moved. Not put away. Empty. Lucy didn't scream. She didn't even inhale. She froze. Then she walked forward slowly, like she was approaching an animal that might bite. She looked down at the floor, then at the shelf, then behind the chair like maybe it had fallen and no one noticed. Finally, she turned to me. Did great-grandma change her mind? She asked. Her voice was small, careful, like the question itself might get her in trouble. My throat tightened. No, I said. Lucy swallowed. Then where is it? She didn't sound angry. That would have been easier. She sounded like she was trying to be good. And that's when I knew I couldn't let her see my efficacy. I went to the kitchen. I went to the kitchen because I needed answers, and I needed Lucy not to see what my face was about to do when I got them. I left her standing in the music room, still staring at that empty corner, like if she waited long enough the cello might apologize and come back on its own. The kitchen was exactly where it always was, bright, clean, and staged to look like the emotional center of the house. My mother was there, of course. She's always in the kitchen when she wants to look like she's holding the family together with her bare hands. She had a mug in one hand and her phone in the other. Hair pulled back. Comfortable. Busy in the way people get when they're avoiding something. My dad sat at the table scrolling on his tablet, calm as a man who believes the world will always make room for him. And my sister Rachel was perched on a stool, sipping something green and expensive looking, like she was waiting for applause. None of them looked up when I walked in. Where's Lucy's cello? I asked. My mom blinked slowly, like she was confused why I'd bring up something inconvenient before she finished her coffee. Good morning to you too, she said. I didn't sit. I didn't soften my voice. Where is it? My dad sighed, already tired of me existing. What's the problem now? Rachel snorted without looking up. I felt my heart start doing that thing where it tries to escape my chest and find a quieter family. Lucy's cello, I said again. Where is it? My mom took a sip of her coffee. Your father handled it. That phrase, handled it, landed like a warning siren. Handled it how? I asked. My dad finally looked up. We sold it. The room went strangely quiet. Even the refrigerator seemed to pause like it wanted to hear what happened next. You sold it, I said. Yes, he replied like he was explaining property taxes. It was valuable. It was sitting there. Your grandmother wasn't even using it. It wasn't hers, I said. It was Lucy's. Rachel laughed. She's 11. My mom set her mug down gently, like this was a conversation she planned to win. Emily, don't start. Don't start, I repeated. You sold my daughter's cello. My dad leaned back in his chair. It was a family asset. No, I said sharper now. It was set aside for Lucy. Grandma was clear about that. Rachel finally looked up, eyes bright with irritation. And my kids are what? Chopped liver. Ben and Olivia weren't even in the room, and somehow they were still the main characters. My mom gestured toward the backyard. We're doing something nice for the children. The children, she said again like she expected applause. And Lucy doesn't count? I asked. My dad rubbed his forehead. Lucy will be fine with a student cello. You can rent one. Plenty of kids do. Lucy will be fine. That's my family's favorite sentence. It means we did what we wanted and we're done talking about your feelings. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against the counter. Who did you sell it to? I asked. Where is it now? My dad shrugged. A collector. Paid by wire. Quick sale. Of course it was. My mom's eyes sharpened. And before you get any ideas, you are not telling your grandmother. I stared at her. Excuse me. She doesn't need stress, my mom said quickly. She's settling into her facility. Professionals are taking care of her. Let her have peace. You mean let you have peace, I said. My dad's voice hardened. Don't make this about you. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. It's about my kid. Rachel leaned forward, voice sweet in that fake way that makes you want to check your wallet. Emily, honestly, you're always acting like Lucy is some tragic orphan. She's fine. She has you. The way she said you made it sound like a punishment. I turned and walked back toward the hall. Lucy was still standing in the music room, right where I left her. Still staring at the empty space like she was waiting for someone to explain why she didn't matter. I knelt in front of her and took her hands. We're going home, I said. She nodded. No arguing. No questions. That was the worst part. As we walked out, my mom called after me. Emily, do not call your grandmother. Do you hear me? I heard her. I just didn't care anymore. That night everything changed. The drive home was quiet in the way that feels dangerous. Lucy stared out the window, her forehead resting lightly against the glass. She didn't cry. She didn't ask questions. She just went still, like something inside her had decided it was safer not to move. That scared me more than tears ever could. When we got home, she carried her backpack inside and placed it neatly by the door, like routine could protect her. She didn't mention the cello again. Not once. That night, she practiced on the battered student cello her teacher kept for emergencies. The one with strings that buzzed and a sound that never quite settled. It didn't sing. It complained. Lucy adjusted her posture anyway. Chin down. Shoulders loose. Focused. Every time the sound came out thin and wrong, she blinked hard. Not crying, just forcing herself to keep going. I stood in the doorway pretending this was normal. Pretending my kid hadn't just been robbed by her own family. She finally stopped and set the bow down carefully. I can still practice, she said, cautious. It's just harder. I know, I said. She nodded, then looked at her hands. Maybe great-grandma didn't mean for it to be mine yet. That's when something inside me went completely still. Lucy had already decided this was her fault. That she'd misunderstood. That she'd expected too much. That wanting something badly enough somehow made it disappear. I tucked her into bed early. She hugged me tighter than usual, like she was bracing herself for gravity to fail. After she fell asleep, I sat alone at my kitchen table with my phone in front of me. And I thought about my mother's voice. Do not tell your grandmother. Not don't upset her. Not she's fragile. Don't tell her. Like the truth was a weapon, and they expected me to keep it sheathed for their comfort. I realized something then, and it wasn't flattering. I'd spent most of my life trying not to be difficult. I thought being easy was the same as being loved. It isn't. Just makes things easier for everyone else. And I wasn't going to teach Lucy that lesson. The next morning, I drove to my grandmother's place. She lived in a bright, tidy apartment in an assisted independent living community that smelled like lemon cleaner and expensive hand soap. Not depressing. Controlled. There's a difference. The woman at the front desk smiled. Who are you here to see? Margaret, I said. Her smile widened. Ah, she's in the lounge. She's been expecting you. Of course she had. My grandmother sat in an armchair with a book in her lap, glasses perched low on her nose like she was preparing to judge the author personally. She looked up the second I walked in. Sit, she said. Your face is doing that thing. I sat. They did, I said. She didn't ask who. She just waited. So I told her. The missing cello. The pool excavation. The words my parents used. Family asset. Lucy will be fine. Don't tell Grandma. My grandmother listened without interrupting. No gasps. No sighs. Just attention, the kind that feels heavy because it's precise. When I finished, she closed her book slowly. And Lucy, she asked. She went quiet, I said. She asked if you changed your mind. My grandmother's expression didn't crumble. It hardened. She thought it was her fault, she said quietly. I nodded. My grandmother exhaled once, sharp and controlled. When did you last see the file? She asked. What file? The cello documentation, she said. Appraisal. Photos. Identifiers. You showed me months ago, I said. She nodded. Good. Then she leaned forward. Emily, do you have any texts about the pool? Any pictures that show when the renovations started? I can screenshot Rachel's posts, I said. She documented everything. My grandmother nodded. Do that. I hesitated. Grandma, are you okay? She looked at me over her glasses. I am not the one who should be worried. Then she reached for her phone. I'm going to make a call. She didn't say who. She didn't explain. She just made the call, spoke quietly, and hung up. I'll handle it, she said. How? I asked. She smiled, small, controlled. Not with yelling, she said. That never works. She squeezed my hand. Firm. Steady. Go home. Be with your child. And Mom and Dad? I asked. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Let them enjoy their pool. Weeks passed. And then the invitation arrived. Nothing happened at first. No apology. No awkward phone call. No sudden realization. Just silence. Weeks passed in that uncomfortable limbo where everyone pretends nothing is wrong, but every interaction feels staged. Lucy practiced every day, quietly, dutifully. On the rental cello we managed to scrape together. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't hers. The sound didn't bloom. It didn't fill the room. Lucy adjusted anyway. She always did. That was the part that hurt the most. She didn't complain. She didn't ask why. She didn't even ask when she'd get her cello back. She just adapted like kids do when they learn early that comfort is conditional. Meanwhile, my parents posted pictures. Concrete poured. Tiles laid. Water shimmering. Rachel captioned one photo. Worth every penny. Another said, making memories for the kids. No mention of the cello. No acknowledgement of what they'd taken. Just smiles, sun, and chlorine. Then the invite came. Not directly to me, that would have required effort, but dropped into the family group chat like a grocery list. Barbecue. Saturday. 2 p.m. pool reveal. Bring a side if you're coming. No hope you can make it. No would love to see Lucy. Just logistics. Lucy glanced at my phone. Are we going? I opened my mouth then closed it. I didn't know yet. The next morning my grandmother called. We're going, she said. I swallowed. Grandma. I don't want Lucy watching you swallow this, she said calmly. That was all it took. Saturday arrived hot and heavy, the kind of heat that presses down on your shoulders and dares you to complain. Lucy wore her swimsuit under her clothes. Because she's 11 and Hope is stubborn. She didn't talk much on the drive. Neither did I. When we pulled up, the street was lined with cars. Family. Neighbors. The audience my parents loved, witnesses to how well they were doing. The backyard looked like a magazine spread. Blue water shimmering. Stone deck spotless. String lights hung just right, like they'd followed instructions from a home renovation show, and decided that was a personality. Ben was already in the pool, splashing like a tiny hurricane. Olivia floated nearby in oversized sunglasses, because of course she did. Rachel laughed loudly, drink in hand. My mom stood by the grill, posture perfect, matriarch mode activated. My dad hovered nearby, smiling like a man who believed this pool justified everything. And then Lucy and I walked in. My mom's smile flickered. Just for a second. Emily, she said brightly. You made it. Lucy stood beside me, towel folded carefully, eyes drifting over the water, over the loungers, over what her cello had turned into. She swallowed. I put my hand on her shoulder. She leaned into it without looking at me. That's when I knew something for sure. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here because my child deserved to see what happens when you don't let people take from you, and then demand gratitude. My dad clapped his hands. All right, everyone. Food's almost ready. My mom laughed. Before we eat, we just want to say how happy we are to finally have a backyard the kids can really enjoy. Applause. Rachel raised her glass. To family. More applause. Lucy's fingers tightened around her towel. Then someone asked casually, "Where's Margaret? Isn't she coming?" My mom's smile stiffened. "She's busy." Right on cue the gate clicked. I turned. My grandmother walked in. She wasn't in a wheelchair. She didn't look frail. She wore a crisp blouse, calm expression, and beside her stood Andrew, her lawyer, holding a slim folder. The backyard went quiet. Not silent, just alert. My mom's face went pale. My dad's smile froze. Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. My grandmother stepped forward, eyes sweeping over the pool like she was assessing a poorly chosen paint color. "Well," she said pleasantly, "you've been busy." My mom forced a laugh. "Mom, this is a party." "I know," my grandmother said. "That's why I came." She looked at me, then at Lucy. Lucy straightened like her spine recognized safety. My grandmother's gaze softened, just for a second, before she turned back to my parents. "I heard you sold the cello," she said. The air changed. My mom pressed her lips together. "We didn't want to upset you." My grandmother raised a hand. "You didn't want consequences." The word landed hard. My dad cleared his throat. "Let's talk privately." "Oh, Thomas," my grandmother said calmly. "You've had plenty of private time." She turned slightly, addressing the crowd. "I won't keep you long," she said. "I know you're here to swim." Rachel snapped. "This is insane." My grandmother ignored her. "The cello was," she said evenly, "held in trust for Lucy." Silence. Sharp. Absolute. "I am the trustee," she continued. "Lucy is the beneficiary. That instrument was never yours to sell." Lucy's breath caught. Andrew stepped forward and opened the folder. "It was recovered this morning," my grandmother said. Lucy let out a sound. Not a sob, not a cry, just relief escaping. Then my grandmother gestured toward the pool. "You sold something you didn't own," she said calmly, "and poured it into this." Andrew held out papers. "Notice to vacate," he said. 60 days. My mom stared. My dad went gray. Rachel went rigid. "This is because of Emily," Rachel started. "No," my grandmother cut in. "This is because you sold a child's future and expected applause." Lucy whispered. "Mom?" I squeezed her shoulder. And that's when I understood. My parents' faces had gone pale because my grandmother had done the one thing they couldn't survive. She stopped letting the and pretend. After that, everything collapsed. After that day, things didn't magically feel better. Justice doesn't erase damage. It just stops it from spreading. Lucy got her cello back the very next morning. A hard black case, scuffed and travel-worn, delivered like it had been passed through too many hands that never deserved to touch it. My grandmother opened it with Lucy beside her, slow and deliberate, like a ceremony. Lucy didn't speak at first. She ran her fingers over the wood, tracing the curves like she was making sure it was real. Then she hugged my grandmother so tightly that my grandmother closed her eyes, just for a moment, like she'd been holding something in for weeks and finally let herself feel it. But even with the cello back, something had shifted. Lucy practiced again. Every day. Same discipline. Same focus. But she was quieter. More careful. Like part of her still believed it could all be taken again if she breathed too loudly. That's the damage people don't see. My parents discovered consequences quickly. Turns out when you sell something you don't own, the buyer wants their money back immediately. And when that money is sitting in concrete and chlorine, repayment becomes complicated. Words like repayment plan and legal exposure entered their vocabulary. 60 days passed faster than they expected. My mom tried bargaining. My dad tried guilt. Rachel tried distance. None of it worked. They moved out of the house they'd treated like a birthright and into something smaller, cheaper, and very temporary. Rachel, suddenly allergic to accountability, decided it was best if her family focused on their own space. Funny how fast support evaporates when consequences show up. Ben and Olivia adjusted. Kids always do. Lucy adjusted too, but differently. She started speaking up. Small things at first. Actually, I was sitting there. I don't like that joke. No, I'm not okay with that. The first time she did it in front of my mom's mouth tightened like she'd tasted something bitter. Good. Because here's the truth my family never wanted to face. Lucy had always been expected to take up less space. In my parents' house, Ben and Olivia could run, shout, spill juice, demand attention, and it was adorable. Spirited. Kids being kids. Lucy was expected to be quiet, polite, grateful. If Lucy laughed too loud, my mom would smile and say, inside voice, sweetheart. If Ben yelled, my dad laughed and said, he's got lungs on him. Lucy learned early that existing came with conditions. My grandmother saw it. She didn't always confront it directly. Family politics are a minefield, but she did something quieter and far more powerful. She carved out a space where Lucy didn't have to shrink. That space was the music room. Temperature controlled. Humidifier humming softly. Sheet music neatly stacked. A cabinet that locked not because my grandmother was paranoid, but because she understood how people get around valuable things. Lucy said it smelled like polish and peppermint tea. I said it smelled like boundaries. My grandmother taught Lucy the way kids deserve to be taught: specific, honest, attentive. Better, she'd say. That was better. Not empty praise. Not distracted approval. Lucy felt seen there. That's why losing the cello hurt the way it did. Not just because it was expensive or beautiful, but because it symbolized the one place Lucy was allowed to exist fully. After everything happened, my grandmother updated her plans quietly. No speeches. No dramatic announcements. One evening she slid a folder across my kitchen table. I'm putting the house into a trust, she said. I'll be the trustee. You'll be the beneficiary. Protected. Documented. Untouchable. When my parents finally moved out, Lucy and I packed up our apartment. No ceremony. Just boxes and keys and a house that finally felt like it could breathe. The first night there was quiet. Real quiet. No performative laughter. No heavy footsteps pretending to own the place. And then my grandmother moved back in, not as someone being managed, but as someone who belonged. Lucy helped her unpack like it was a celebration. Sweaters. Books. That little tin of peppermint tea. And then, like it was the most natural thing in the world, my grandmother sat in the living room while Lucy practiced. No forced silence. No tight smiles. No inside voice. Just music filling a house that finally knew who it was for. And that's when life started to change in ways none of them expected. Life didn't explode after that. It went quiet. Weeks passed. Not dramatic weeks. Just the kind that stretch on with too much thinking and not enough answers. Lucy practiced every day. She didn't complain about the rental cello, didn't ask why things had happened, didn't bring it up unless I did. That silence worried me more than anger would have. Meanwhile, my parents acted like nothing had happened. They posted progress photos of the pool like they'd personally invented water. Concrete poured. Tiles laid. Ben and Olivia smiling in inflatable floats. Captions like worth every penny and making memories. No apology. No mention of the cello. No acknowledgement of Lucy. Just smiles and chlorine. That was when I realized something important. They weren't ashamed. They were proud. And that's when my grandmother stepped in. Not loudly, not publicly, but decisively. I went to see her one morning without telling anyone. Her assisted living apartment smelled like lemon cleaner and expensive hand soap. Controlled. Calm. The kind of place designed to make difficult people feel manageable. She was sitting in her armchair with a book on her lap, glasses perched low on her nose. Sit, she said the second she saw my face. Your expression is doing that thing. I sat. They sold it, I said. You already know that. She nodded once. Tell me everything anyway. So I did. The pool. The posts. The way Lucy had gone quiet. The way my mother told me not to tell her. Not because it would hurt her, but because it would inconvenience them. My grandmother didn't interrupt. She listened like someone assembling a puzzle she already understood. When I finished, she closed her book carefully and placed it on the table beside her. When did you last see the file? She asked. The cello documentation? I said. Months ago. You showed me. Good, she said. Do you have photos of the construction? Yes, I said. Rachel posts everything. Save them, she said. Dates matter. I stared at her. Grandma, are you okay? She looked at me over her glasses, calm and sharp. Emily, I am not the one who should be worried. Then she reached for her phone. She didn't ask permission. She didn't explain. She just made the call, spoke quietly, and hung up. I'll handle it, she said. How? I asked. She smiled, not kindly, not angrily, but knowingly. Not with yelling, she said. I don't waste energy on people who feed on noise. She reached across and squeezed my hand. Her grip was warm. Steady. Lucy is going to get her cello back, she said. My throat tightened. How do you know? Her eyes sharpened. Because it was never theirs to sell. I froze. She watched my face carefully, measuring how much I could take. Not today, she said gently. I'll explain when it matters. I drove home feeling like I'd stepped into a room where the air pressure had changed. Like something had shifted under my feet, but hadn't cracked yet. And then nothing happened. Not publicly. Not immediately. 6 weeks passed. Lucy practiced. We scraped together a better rental after her teacher found one at a discount. It still wasn't hers. The sound didn't bloom the same way. Lucy adjusted anyway because she always did. My parents posted photos of the pool reveal countdown. String lights. Lounge chairs. Drinks with umbrellas. Then the invite dropped into the family group chat. Barbecue. Saturday. 2 p.m. Pool reveal. Bring a side. No warmth. No apology. Just logistics because in my family, feelings are optional but potato salad is mandatory. Lucy glanced at my phone. Are we going? I didn't answer right away. The next morning my grandmother called. We're going, she said. Grandma, I don't want Lucy watching you swallow this, she said calmly. That lesson lasts longer than any instrument. I swallowed. Okay. There was a pause. Then she said, it's in motion. In motion. I repeated. The cello, she said. My heart kicked. What do you mean? You'll find out soon enough, she said and hung up. Saturday arrived hot and bright. Perfect pool weather. Lucy wore her swimsuit under her clothes because Hope is stubborn at 11. The street was lined with cars. Family. Neighbors. The kind of crowd my parents loved because it made them feel validated. The backyard looked like a brochure. Blue water. Clean stone. String lights already on even in daylight. Ben was splashing. Olivia floated with sunglasses on. Rachel laughed loudly. My parents glowed. And Lucy stood beside me, towel folded carefully in her hands, eyes drifting over everything her cello had turned into. Then the gate clicked, and everything changed. The gate clicked. But not yet. That moment, the one that would change everything, was still ahead of us. For now all we had was waiting. And waiting has a sound to it once you know how to listen. It sounds like Lucy practicing scales in the evenings, steady and disciplined, even when the notes don't bloom the way they should. It sounds like my phone buzzing with pool updates I never asked for. It sounds like my parents pretending nothing is wrong because pretending has always worked for them before. Lucy didn't ask about the cello anymore. That worried me. Kids don't stop caring when things are okay. They stop caring when they're trying not to hurt. She practiced anyway. Every afternoon. Same routine. Same focus. Same careful posture, like she was afraid even the air might accuse her of wanting too much. Sometimes I caught her staring at the rental cello before she played, like she was apologizing to it in advance. I'll try, she'd say quietly. Not I'll play. I'll try. That sentence lodged itself somewhere sharp inside me. Meanwhile, my parents were loud. The pool had a countdown now. Rachel posted stories daily. Tile samples, lounge chairs, drink menus. Ben and Olivia modeling goggles. My mother reposting everything with heart emojis and captions about family. Family apparently meant whoever benefited most. No one reached out. No one asked how Lucy was doing. No one asked if we needed help. No one mentioned the cello again. It was like it had been erased. I started to understand something then. Silence wasn't accidental. It was strategy. If they didn't acknowledge it, they could rewrite it. If they smiled long enough, maybe reality would blink first. Lucy adapted the way children do when adults fail them by shrinking. She talked less in the car. Answered questions carefully. Laughed quietly. When Ben yelled or Olivia demanded attention at family dinners we no longer attended, Lucy would flinch anyway, like her body still expected correction. She was learning a lesson I never wanted her to learn. And my grandmother knew it. She called once more that week. Not to explain. Not to reassure. Just to ask, has anything changed? No, I said. Good, she replied. That means they still feel safe. That word stuck with me. Safe. I realized then this wasn't about punishment. It wasn't even about justice yet. It was about timing. My grandmother wasn't reacting. She was positioning. The pool party invite sat unanswered in the group chat. Rachel followed up privately. You should come. Lucy will love it. I stared at that message longer than I should have. Lucy saw my face. It's okay if we go, she said quickly. I won't be weird. That broke something in me. You're never weird for feeling things, I said. She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. The morning of the party, my grandmother called again. What should Lucy wear? She asked calmly. I hesitated. A swimsuit. Good, she said. Hope is allowed. That was the closest she came to explaining anything. Saturday arrived heavy with heat. The kind that presses down on your skin and makes everything feel closer than it should be. Lucy wore her swimsuit under her clothes, towel folded neatly over her arm. She didn't chatter the way she used to before family events. She just watched the road. When we turned onto my parents' street, cars lined both sides. Familiar ones. Holiday relatives. Neighbors. People who loved a spectacle but hated discomfort. The backyard was already alive. Music. Laughter. Splashing. My parents stood near the grill glowing. Rachel held court like a host on opening night. Ben shrieked as he cannonballed. Olivia floated, sunglasses firmly in place. Lucy stopped walking for half a second when she saw the pool. Not dramatic. Just enough. I felt her lean into my side. My mother spotted us and smiled, bright, tight, practiced. You made it, she said like this was a test we'd passed. Lucy nodded politely. Rachel glanced down at her. You can swim if you want. Lucy shook her head. Maybe later. She stood beside me, towel clutched in both hands, eyes flicking over the water, the chairs, the lights, the shape of what had been taken and turned into something else. I scanned the yard instinctively. My grandmother wasn't there. The absence was loud. Someone asked, "Where's Margaret?" My mother answered too quickly. "She's busy." Lucy looked up at me. I squeezed her shoulder. Then finally, the gate click. Kid. And this time everyone heard it. And this time everyone heard it. The click of the gate wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. It cut through the backyard like a dropped glass, sharp enough to pull attention without demanding it. Conversation stalled mid-sentence. Someone laughed a second too late. Music kept playing cheerful and wrong. I turned first. My grandmother walked in like she belonged there, because she did. Not rushing. Not hesitating. Calm in a way that made the air around her feel suddenly cooler. She wasn't frail. She wasn't tentative. She wore a crisp blouse and slacks, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. Beside her walked a man I recognized immediately, even though I'd only met him once. Andrew. Her lawyer. He carried a slim folder under his arm. Lucy straightened beside me, like her body recognized safety before her mind caught up. My mother's smile froze. Not dropped. Not cracked. Frozen. My father's hand paused mid-gesture near the grill, tongs suspended like he'd forgotten what they were for. Rachel's laugh died in her throat. She turned slowly, drink still in hand, eyes narrowing as if she could control the moment by refusing to accept it. My grandmother's gaze swept the yard, the pool, the stonework, the loungers, the string lights. "Well," she said pleasantly, her voice carrying just far enough, "you've been busy." A few people chuckled, unsure if they were allowed to. My mother forced a laugh. "Mom, this is a party." "I know," my grandmother replied. "That's why I came." She looked at Lucy then. Just for a second. Lucy's shoulders lifted, just a little, like she'd been holding her breath without realizing it. Then my grandmother turned back to my parents. "I heard you sold the cello," she said. The word sold landed like a dropped plate. My mother's lips pressed together. "We didn't want to upset you. You didn't want consequences," my grandmother said calmly. Someone near the patio table shifted their weight. A cousin suddenly became very interested in their phone. My father cleared his throat. "Let's talk about this privately." "Oh, Thomas," my grandmother said gently. "You've had plenty of private time." That did it. The backyard quieted fully now. Even the kids paused, splashing, slowing, as if the water itself sensed something had changed. "I won't keep you long," my grandmother continued, turning slightly so her voice carried to everyone. "I know you're here to swim." Rachel snapped. "This is ridiculous." My grandmother didn't look at her. "The cello," she said, "was held in trust." The silence that followed was sharp enough to hurt. Lucy's fingers tightened around her towel. "I am the trustee," my grandmother continued. "Lucy is the beneficiary. That instrument was not a family asset. It was not yours to sell." My father stared at her, blinking like he was trying to translate a foreign language. Rachel shook her head. "You can't." "I can," my grandmother said, finally meeting her eyes. Andrew stepped forward, calm and quiet, and opened the folder. "I documented that instrument," my grandmother said. "Appraisal, photographs, serial identifiers, insurance. Because I've been alive a long time and I've met people." She paused. "Apparently, I'm related to some of them." A few nervous laughs escaped before people realized laughing might be a mistake. My mother's voice shook. "We didn't know anything about a trust." "Correct," my grandmother said. "You didn't." My father finally managed. "Where is it?" My grandmother smiled. "Safe." Lucy's head snapped up. Her breath caught. Not a sob, not a gasp. Just the sound of relief trying to escape quietly. "It was recovered this morning," my grandmother added, nodding toward Andrew. "After a few phone calls." Rachel exploded. "This was for the kids." My grandmother's gaze sharpened instantly. "Lucy is a child." Rachel's mouth opened, closed. Andrew stepped forward again, holding out papers like a waiter presenting a bill no one wants to see. "Notice to vacate," he said calmly. 60 days. My mother stepped back. "No." Andrew didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Rachel snatched the papers like she could tear reality apart if she pulled hard enough. "You're kicking us out?" My grandmother tilted her head. "You're surprised." "This is our home," my mother whispered. "It is the house you live in," my grandmother replied. "That is not the same thing." Lucy pressed closer to me. I wrapped an arm around her without looking away. Rachel tried to speak again. My grandmother cut her off. "This is not because of Emily," she said firmly. "This is because you sold a child's instrument and poured the money into a pool, like it was Monopoly." My father's voice cracked. "We improved the property." "You improved your comfort with stolen money," my grandmother said. "In a house you don't own." The backyard began to fracture. People remembered errands. Kids were called out of the pool. Drinks were set down unfinished. Lucy whispered, "Mom." I looked down at her. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. "I thought I did something wrong," she said quietly. My grandmother stepped toward her immediately. "You did nothing wrong." Lucy exhaled, a breath she'd been holding for weeks. My grandmother looked back at my parents. 60 days, she said again. "You will leave." My father stared at the ground. Rachel hissed something under her breath. And just like that, the performance ended. But the truth has a way of following people long after the party is over. The party didn't end all at once. It unraveled. People didn't rush out. They drifted. Slowly. Uneasily. Like they were leaving a room where something private had just been exposed, and they weren't sure where to put their eyes anymore. Plates were abandoned on tables. Drinks sweated into the stone. Someone's playlist kept going, cheerful and wildly inappropriate, until my dad reached over and shut the speaker off without saying a word. The sudden silence felt heavier than the confrontation. My mother stood perfectly still, staring at the eviction notice in Rachel's hand like it might start rearranging itself if she waited long enough. Her mouth opened once, then closed. She looked smaller somehow. Not fragile. Just exposed. Rachel was not quiet. "This is insane," she hissed, pacing now. "You embarrassed us. In front of everyone." My grandmother didn't raise her voice. "You embarrassed yourselves." My father finally spoke, his voice low and tight. "You could have handled this privately." My grandmother turned to him slowly. "You sold a child's instrument and told her mother not to tell me." A pause. "I consider that private enough." Lucy stayed pressed against my side. She wasn't watching my parents anymore. She was watching my grandmother. Like she was memorizing what calm looked like when it wasn't surrender. Andrew stepped closer to my parents, professional, steady. "There will be follow-up," he said. "Regarding the sale, the buyer has been contacted. Funds will be expected to be returned." My father's face drained of what little color he had left. "Returned? We don't." Andrew nodded once. "That's not my concern." Rachel laughed, sharp and brittle. "This is about a cello." "A cello?" My grandmother looked at her. "It's about boundaries." Rachel scoffed. "You're choosing her over us." "No," my grandmother said. "I am choosing right over wrong." That landed harder than shouting ever could. My mother finally found her voice. "Mom, you're tearing this family apart." My grandmother studied her for a long moment. "This family has been pulling itself apart for years," she said quietly. "I simply stopped holding it together for you." Lucy's fingers curled into my shirt. I felt her breathing slow. Steady. Someone coughed behind us. An aunt I barely spoke to avoided eye contact. A neighbor whispered something I couldn't hear. The social hierarchy my parents lived on had shifted, and everyone could feel it. Rachel tried one last angle. "So what now? You think Lucy gets everything?" I answered before my grandmother could. "She gets what was always hers." Rachel's mouth twisted. "Must be nice." I met her eyes. "It would have been if you hadn't taken it." That shut her up. My grandmother crouched slightly in front of Lucy, her voice softening in a way it hadn't for anyone else that day. "Sweetheart, your cello will be delivered tomorrow. I'll be there." Lucy nodded, her eyes shining. "Okay." No apology. No guilt. Just acceptance. Like a kid who finally understood the rules had changed. The rest of the afternoon collapsed in fragments. My parents didn't argue anymore. They didn't apologize either. They moved like people already calculating losses. Rachel left early, dragging her kids with forced cheerfulness. "Say goodbye," she told them too brightly, like nothing was wrong. Ben waved. Olivia didn't look back. As we walked toward the gate, my mother called my name. "Emily." I turned. She looked at me like she wanted comfort. Like she'd finally realized I wasn't a child anymore. Just too late. "You didn't have to do this," she said. I answered honestly. "I didn't." "You did." Her face crumpled then. Just for a second. We didn't stay to watch them clean up. In the car, Lucy sat quietly, staring out the window. "Mom?" she asked after a minute. "Yeah. Am I allowed to be happy about this?" I swallowed. "Yes." She nodded, satisfied. That night my phone buzzed. Missed calls. Texts. A message from my dad that started with "We need to talk" and ended with nothing. I didn't reply. Because some truths don't need discussion. They need consequences. And consequences were just getting started. The consequences didn't arrive loudly. They showed up the way reality usually does, through emails, phone calls, certified letters, and silences that stretched too long to ignore. The first call came 3 days later. It wasn't from my parents. It was from the buyer. Andrew had warned us it would happen. He said people who spend nearly 6 figures on rare instruments don't just shrug when they find out the sale wasn't legal. The buyer wanted his money back. Immediately. My parents didn't have it. Pools are permanent. Cash isn't. My mother called me that night. Not angry. Not crying. Controlled, which somehow felt worse. They're threatening legal action, she said. Can you talk to your grandmother? No, I said. A pause. You don't understand, she continued. We used that money. I understand perfectly, I replied. You spent it. She exhaled sharply. You're enjoying this. I looked at Lucy across the room, practicing on the rental cello, shoulders tight, sound thin but determined. No, I said. I survived it. She hung up on me. The eviction notices followed next. Rachel tried to spin it online, vague posts about toxic family and being blindsided. She left out the part about the stolen instrument. Funny how that detail never made it into her version. My dad stopped calling altogether. The buyer didn't. Neither did the lawyer handling repayment. Turns out selling something you don't own creates a domino effect. One bad decision taps the next, and suddenly everything is moving whether you're ready or not. They tried to refinance. They couldn't. They tried to borrow. People suddenly remember being busy. 60 days shrank fast. Meanwhile, Lucy changed. Not dramatically. Not all at once. She started correcting people when they interrupted her. She stopped apologizing for asking questions. The first time she said, "Actually, that's not right." At school, she looked surprised, like she'd discovered a muscle she didn't know she had. Her teacher emailed me to say Lucy was playing louder. Not recklessly. Confidently. The cello arrived on a Tuesday morning. Hard case. Scuffed corners. Smelled faintly like old wood and travel. My grandmother came over and let Lucy open it herself. Lucy didn't cry. She rested her forehead against the curve of the instrument for a long moment, breathing like she was sinking herself back to something she'd lost. Then she played. The sound filled the apartment, rich, warm, unmistakably hers. My grandmother watched quietly from the kitchen doorway. She never stopped belonging to it, she said softly. She just needed to know it. My parents moved out 2 weeks later. Smaller place. No yard. No pool. Rachel didn't offer to take them in. Funny how loyalty evaporates when comfort is threatened. The buyer got his repayment plan. My parents got quieter. And the family group chat died a slow, awkward death. No announcement, no goodbye. Just silence where entitlement used to live. One afternoon, Lucy asked, "Are Grandma and Grandpa mad at me?" I knelt in front of her. No. They're dealing with the consequences of their choices. She considered that. Like when I forget my music and can't play? Yes, I said. But bigger. She nodded, satisfied. Life didn't magically become perfect. But it became honest. And honesty, I learned, is lighter to carry than denial. Life didn't end there. It finally began to rearrange itself. The house felt different once it was ours. Not louder. Not bigger. Quieter in a way that felt earned. The first night we slept there, Lucy patted down the hallway in her socks and stood in the doorway of my room. "It doesn't sound angry," she said. I waited. "The house," she added. "It's not yelling anymore." I realized then how much she'd absorbed without ever being told. How kids learn atmospheres the way adults learn rules. My grandmother moved back in slowly. Not ceremoniously. Just one carload at a time. Sweaters. Books. Her teacups. That peppermint tin Lucy loved. No one made speeches. No one asked permission. She belonged there. Lucy practiced every afternoon in the living room. No shrine-level silence. No hovering. Just music folding itself into the walls like it always should have. Sometimes my grandmother corrected her posture. Sometimes she just listened. And sometimes she closed her eyes and let the sound exist without commentary, which I learned is its own kind of trust. My parents didn't visit. They sent one message each. My mother wrote, "I hope one day you understand why we did what we did." I didn't respond. Understanding isn't the same thing as excusing. My father wrote, "We're still family." I stared at that sentence for a long time before deleting it. Family doesn't require silence to survive. Lucy auditioned for the Regional Youth Orchestra that spring. She wore her lucky sweater. The one with the fraying cuff she refused to let me fix. When she walked onto the stage, she didn't look back. She played like someone who knew she was allowed to take up space. She got in. My grandmother smiled, proud but unsurprised. She was always capable, she said. She just needed protection long enough to grow. That sentence stayed with me. Protection doesn't mean rescuing someone forever. It means standing between them and harm until they're strong enough to stand alone. My parents never apologized. They didn't have to. Their absence did enough explaining. Rachel stopped posting about family altogether. Her curated joy moved on to other things: fitness challenges, home decor, vague resilience quotes. The pool sat unused. Concrete cracks when it's poured with the wrong foundation. Lucy, meanwhile, started asking questions at dinner, giving opinions, saying no. The first time she corrected an adult politely but firmly, I felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized was knotted. One night, while she packed her music bag, she asked, "Why didn't you stop them sooner?" I didn't deflect. I didn't know how, I said honestly. And I thought keeping peace was the same as being good. She thought about that. Peace for who? Exactly. My grandmother updated her trust quietly, methodically. No drama. No threats. Just paperwork that reflected reality instead of pretending it didn't exist. The house was secured. Lucy's future was protected. And I learned something I wish I'd known earlier. Silence isn't kindness. It's consent. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're clarity. And protecting a child's joy isn't indulgent. It's essential. One afternoon, Lucy paused mid-practice and said, "Mom." "Yeah. Thanks for telling Grandma." I swallowed. "Always." She smiled and went back to playing, the sound confident, steady, unafraid. That's how I knew we'd done the right thing. Not because someone else suffered, but because a child didn't have to shrink anymore. So if you're listening to this and you've ever wondered whether you were overreacting, if you've been told to keep quiet for the sake of harmony, if you've been asked to swallow something wrong so someone else could stay comfortable, let this be your reminder. Protecting what matters is not betrayal. It's love with a backbone. And sometimes the people who matter most are the ones brave enough to draw the line. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had to choose truth over peace, you're not alone.